Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Adventures of a Real Estate Investor. I'm Susie.
And I'm Michael, and we're excited that you joined us for this adventure.
Today's guest is Yonah Weiss. Yonah, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you. It's my pleasure. Appreciate you inviting me.
Yeah, I know. So it's been super cool to get to know you over the past few months, right? So for the listeners, I actually had heard about Yonah before I ever met him, which I don't know if that's creepy or not, but somebody had reached out to me because they knew that Michael and I were getting into the real estate space. So, this was last September-ish, and I guess into multifamily. And they were like, hey, you should definitely try this challenge, right? That really helped me network with people. It really helped me learn more about commercial real estate, just because in itself, you have to come up with content, but then you read and comment on everybody else's content. And so from there, Michael and I have now been a part of 2 of your challenges. And I'm going to let you know, the amount of people that we have met, I'm blown away. The stuff I've learned, I'm blown away. But even how much more creative we've gotten because of your challenges, right? They actually created a space for us to think outside of the box on how we want to give content. So I do want to thank you very much for creating that space for us, especially living all the way in the UK. It's cool that we can connect from people in the US and from anywhere in the world. So thank you for that.
Yeah, exactly. It's amazing. I love the fact that it has, it's really a testament to you, because I create the challenge. All right. I created this and kind of given a platform. I encourage people to go out of their comfort zone, to post more, to be more involved, because I've seen so much incredible growth and potential for, business to come out of that. I just wanted to open that up for other people to do. So, but it's a testament to you guys to actually taking it on and running with it. And that's what I love the most, is seeing how people use it and how people really just, take a hold of their social media presence through these challenges. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so just to back up a little bit, let's dive in a little bit about your background, Yonah, and how you got involved in this community.
My background, it's interesting. The community, I think you're discussing, the multifamily, the, real estate, online, kind of community, which is an incredible community, by the way. I started in real estate about 5 years ago, maybe close to 6 years already. And various things, I kind of stumbled upon LinkedIn a while ago, I don't know, maybe 3-4 years ago, and saw that it was, this kind of happening place where people were posting content. And that really opened it up for me. Before that, I had connections within the real estate community. I had been doing some brokering. I had friends that, own real estate and invest, or property managers, et cetera. So I had some connections within the community, but it was really only when I started this with this cost segregation company and was trying to find a place, a niche. And I saw there was an opening. I saw there was really a void, if you will, that nobody is posting content about this very specific subject that is a little bit complicated. Mm-hmm. And those that are, I would say nobody, but nobody actively and nobody really, professionally. Those content that's out there is more like accounting and the things that are kind of boring by nature, right? No one's likes to read accounting, articles, right? No one likes to read, or very few real estate investors, I should say. Yeah, maybe accountants do, but they don't like to read it. So I found a space that this was something not being talked about a lot. And LinkedIn just happened to be, at the time, an incredible outlet for that. And so that's a long story short, how I got involved. It developed over time, and it's kind of keeps, snowballing as we speak.
No, yeah. And it's cool. What was it like actually at the beginning? So how many people were in your first challenge as opposed to how many people were in it now?
So the challenge really just started about a little over a year ago. It was kind of after seeing so much incredible just involvement through the community in general, that I decided to create this challenge, where, just to give a little background for those of our listeners who don't know what we're talking about this challenge, it's a 10-day challenge with a group of people. I call it the CRE LinkedIn challenge, kind of broad name. Each time has a little bit of a different hashtag, but the CRE LinkedIn challenge, which is essentially an accountability group of people coming together to encourage them to post regularly for 10 days straight on LinkedIn. And what that does is not only does it encourage you to post every day, to get yourself out there, out of your comfort zone, but it also encourages you to engage with others and really start to build those connections. Like you said, you met so many people through this, which that's awesome to me, because you never know where that's going to lead, and I've seen people do business, invest, do deals together, and years later, right, even or a year later, I'm seeing people who started off with very few connections, very little involvement on LinkedIn, now a great content creator, like yourselves, who have been doing this and successfully, proving it to be right. So I already had a very large following to begin with, and a great, connections without and throughout the community, the multifamily, especially real estate community, just by the position that I'm in cost segregation, that I deal with hundreds of investors across the country already. And people like me. I mean, if someone's going to save you millions of dollars in taxes, you like them. I mean, I'm in a good position, right? And then I just want to give back. Like, that's really what it's about. And part of my personality, part of who I am, and what my whole business model is just helping people and seeing what I can do to give back. So this was a perfect opportunity to combine those different roles.
No, absolutely. And like what I love about it too is that like within your role, I'm sure nowhere, if you were to describe your job description, it'd be like create like this amazing family on LinkedIn, like that's going above and beyond. It's not only going like above and beyond for you, but all of the people, who are a part of this challenge. And like, it shows like how generous you are, but also like how generous we are for each other. Cause like in the challenge also, like you're part of a group, and in that group, I don't know, there's like 10 to 20-ish people maybe. And you are there for one another, right? Like you're not supposed to like tell everyone, hey, I posted, like, please go on there and do the content. It's like, we're all there at the end to do that boost, because even for some people who don't know, like the more comments and likes on your post, like the more views that your post can get. So like at the end, when everybody gives you like that power boost, like it then can reach, like 2,000 plus people. And that's like the power of it as well. But being able to come up with the content too, like that's a form of generosity, right? Like, hey, I am now like going out of my day, because again, that's not necessarily part of like our typical job description, right, to share this information with all of you. Because like even before, some people had thought of LinkedIn as like a place where you go when you want to get a new job almost, right? It's like your resume, but like now a resume is not just a piece of paper. Like you can use LinkedIn to show everyone like, this is the content that I write. Like, this is how I provide more education. This is what I'm doing beyond what this one piece of paper like puts me in a box to be. So like, it's cool how your generosity has now like created this great ripple effect, because like what you do, not even just in LinkedIn, right? It's like Facebook, like your meetups, like it's above and beyond. Like you just create like a space where it's like, no, now this is fun. Like this is something I want to do. So it just blows my mind that you've been able to have so many people have that mindset shift, right? Like I think the impact that you create, like, yes, it's on LinkedIn, but it's also like inside us, like it's inside our minds, and that you can, like there's never enough thank yous in the world for that.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, and there really is, it's very difficult to even fathom the effect that this has. And you said like the ripple effect, you never know like how this is going to affect one person and then 10 and another, each one of them, another 5. You never know where it goes. But I just want to pick up on something that you said. We have this inside of us, and it's really just about creating content, not as a form of creating content per se, but it's more a lot of it has to do with kind of sharing who you are and sharing your journey throughout that people can relate to. Like you said, your resume is just like a piece of paper, but when you create like a living resume, like here's what we're doing now. We just bought this property, or we're under, due diligence, or whatever it is that we're doing. You're sharing that, and it's educational, it's informative, but at the same time, it's personable, and people get to know you through that. And what I love about what I do is that I very, seldom talk about cost segregation itself. I mean, I do plenty of times on podcasts, and I'll post from time to time informational things and give webinars, et cetera. But it's more about, people doing business with people, and you want to get to know people. You want to feel like you trust them. You want to feel like you can actually rely on them. as opposed to just kind of randomly selecting someone to do business with.
Mhm.
And with that being said, this is what, Gary Vee talks about a lot, that everyone is in the marketing business.
Mhm.
We all happen to do other things, right? You happen to be a syndicator, you happen to sell insurance, you happen to, sell whatever it is, but you're in the marketing business. And that's really what it all comes down to. Learning by practice how to market yourself and your business and whatever it is that you're doing in the right way.
No, exactly. And like, even through marketing yourself in the right way, like, you think that you have a style, right? But then when you're even part of this challenge, or once you start to become more present on social media, you learn so many other styles, right? And like, so many people are just scrolling, right? And now it's created a place where it's like very intentional, because you can learn something from every post, whether it's the content, whether it's the way somebody like made a comment, because it's like, oh, I never thought of it that way. Like, thanks for that, or you see somebody posting something differently. Like, it makes you aware of some of the blind spots that you have, just because you have then decided to be in a space with so many different kind of people, right? Because we're all focused like on commercial real estate, but I guess the education, the content is endless. Like,
Yeah.
three people could even talk about the same thing and just say it in different words, and you could have learned about it three different ways. Like, again, too, because we all have different learning styles. And so being able to look at it and be like, wow, I finally got that concept, like, that blows my mind within itself. It's just, yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, exactly. And people are going to relate to you. Like you said, people learn things in different ways. People are going to relate to you because of your saying it, right? They may not have wanted to pay attention at all to anything having to do with asset management, but they see, the London Bridge in the background of your video, and they're like, okay, I'm going to pay attention to this guy because I like the London Bridge. And you never know who that's going to open up to, that could turn kind of a light switch on someone. So it is really the creativity that gives it life and allows for kind of to open it up to people that you may not be able to reach otherwise.
No, that's so very true, right? And so many of us might think we're not even creative. And then like, once you see other people post, you get that confidence to be more creative. Like, I love that after like this last challenge, there are people posting videos now. I'm like, this is amazing, like some people who never liked being on videos. I even used to be with one of those people, but it's like that practice, you also gain that confidence, right? Because somebody might think to this, I was like, I'm not a good writer. It's like, well, none of us were really good writers the first time we did it, but we grew into it. And that was like the point too, right? Like, we're all growing together. And so we're all going to be supportive towards one another.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just to add to that a little bit, just to explain the power of this, is like the little group, the mini groups that we have broken up into, is we built like a community together throughout this challenge, through these 2 weeks. It's like 2 weeks, 10 days, whatever. And now that it's over, we're still in contact with each other. And a lot of those people in my group, we've set up calls to chat more about like how we can help each other grow, business grow and stuff like that. Additionally to that, like, we're still in contact. We're still following each other's posts along the way. It's been over a week now that this challenge has been over. And we're still like commenting, following, liking each other's posts, which is really awesome. So that helps us get more and more traction and more views of our content. And just to dive in a little bit deeper, like, I followed like how many followers I had, connections I had before the challenge, or right when the challenge began, and then after it was over, the 10 days later, I think I gained 236 connections in that 2 week period, right? Those 10 days of just posting every single day. So it's very incredible. It's very powerful. So
is that more than the average 10 days of your spending time on LinkedIn?
Yeah, absolutely. So
yeah, and I know that like LinkedIn isn't also just about like the number of connections, right? But it's like, cool, people saw our content, and then that's why they reached out to Michael. Like, a ton of those connections had that note saying like, oh, I saw your video. Oh, I saw your video. Just because like, not the average amount of people saw his videos, like, it went above and beyond after that boost.
Sure.
But even like talking about going above and beyond, like, you have this meetup that I absolutely love to go to, except for me, it's at midnight, and I struggle with that. But for you literally do it from 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. Like, the generosity of that within itself blows my mind. So like a huge thing with us, right, is like the return on impact. Like when it becomes greater than yourself, like being able to like wake up, or I don't know if you don't even go to bed yet, who knows, but staying up that late, like that's what gives you the fuel to keep doing it, right? And so I'd love for you to even like explain a little bit like how you decided to actually take the plunge to like do it at 2:00 in the morning your time. Like what makes you want to stay up? You know, if people want to keep networking, like how do you decide like, nope, like I'm doing this for other people, like even the guests that you have on, right? Because you and yourself, like you have a business that you're promoting. So some people too, like want to keep that all to themselves and be like, oh no, I only want to talk about my business. So like, how do you even move that like barrier to be like, no, being more generous is exactly who and what I want to do?
So I think it comes down to the essence of what or how I view networking, right? What networking is and what, business is in general. I think networking is probably the most integral component. I didn't always realize this, but when I did pick this up, I just kind of ran with it and see that, I say at the beginning of my podcast, every episode, right? Your network is your net worth. And I truly believe that. And there's a lot of different interpretations of what that means. But to me, it means like you can never stop building that because you never know how impactful one connection, one person will have in your life. And so continue to build that. And again, it's not about numbers building, how many people that I know, but how deep those relationships can go. So the more you invest into those relationships, the deeper those connections, deeper those business relationships or personal, whatever it is, come. And the networking part of these kind of meetups is probably, I think, in a world that we were last year, totally relegated to our little houses or whatever we were kind of under shelter in place, whatever it was. At that moment, like I decided, okay, we need to do this Zoom networking thing because we need that personal connection and to whatever extent we can. And that brings people together so much stronger than just, messaging or even having like phone calls or meeting, whatever. You can't go to conferences. This is the best that we can do in the under the circumstances. And even though now like things have opened up more and kind of going back to that, I think people still love the idea that you can be anywhere in the world or anywhere in the country, wherever it is, and come together at a certain time every day. It's kind of like, like Cheers, everyone knows your name. You come to the thing and you are with the same people over and over, week after week. And yes, we do have new people coming every week. And we have, a big list of people that can potentially come. But again, there is a kind of core group of people that are building those connections. And I've literally seen deals happen. I mean, we had one speaker a couple months ago who I brought in, and one of the regulars at our meetup, met him for the first time, this speaker. And a week later, he took a position with that company. I mean, he was hired and he took a job. So it was like, seeing things like that happen, and it's happened multiple times where literally like lives are changed through this networking. And so it builds on itself. Like there's exponential, growth through that. So it is a lot about, like, going back to your original question, it is a lot about generosity. It is a lot about how I can give, what I can give of myself. And the more you put yourself out there and the more you focus on, by putting yourself out there, focus on others, the more you'll get back in return. You may not even see it immediately, but it definitely comes back in return, like endless results. I mean, tenfold would be a great underestimation.
Yeah, I think there's a Zig Ziglar quote that's famous for that, right? If you can get everything you want in life, if you help everybody else get what they want, right? Something like that.
Exactly.
No, and like that, like, I mean, still, like, I'm still speechless sometimes just because, like, I am truly amazed by it all. Like, and I don't know if I can, I guess, say this enough, like, even for the listeners, like being able to get out of your comfort zone and do something new. Like, if you want to start, like the LinkedIn challenge is a great place because you do have those supportive people behind you, and the people who join it aren't experts. They're people who are brand new, and then there are people who are experts. But like something I use, like this analogy often, is that I feel like it's a barrel full of monkeys, right? So if you've ever played the game, like one monkey has its arm up and the other monkey has its arm down, and you connect them all. But the point is that people are reaching up for help and people are reaching down to help others, you know? And that in itself just blows my mind, right? Like we are literally all there together in this great space. And even in like the real estate community, because it's not just like, oh, we just buy real estate, right? Like there are a lot of components that go into real estate. Like it's a place where we're all coming together as a team, you know?
Yeah.
And I love that you see people from different industries be a part of it, because if I were to like reflect on, you know, like the other positions I've had, like within a W-2, like you don't see that type of teamwork and that type of connection ever.
Right. Yeah. And I think the fact that it brings people together from, like you said, from multiple industries, but you're kind of bringing together for one cause. And I think real estate has that kind of unique aspect to it that a lot of people who invest in real estate, you don't necessarily, aren't involved or don't come from a real estate world. It's kind of something that brings people together. And kind of like you said, it's a team. It really is, especially multifamily commercial. It's a team sport. It really is something that you have to have a wide spectrum of people involved in the process, whether it's from investors, from who knows where they're coming from, whether it's from brokers or attorneys or accountants and all these different fields, bringing them together like for one common goal. And I think it's even more than that. And that really does have a lot to do with why I created this challenge and this accountability group as well, because in the commercial real estate world, a lot of it has to do with helping each other. And I think it's something that I wouldn't say it's unique to commercial real estate, but I've seen it and definitely been affected by it, which is that there is a lot of abundance mindset among people. People are very happy to share what, and like you said, helping, you're one step above it, help the person that is, coming from where you were a month or 6 months or a year ago, and helping them to get there. There is a lot of that. Like if I learned something new, I want to share it with the world. If I, did something, I want to help you. And it's not like a lot of other industries are kind of close knit and everyone's holding their cards and no one wants to tell anyone else what their next move is because they're afraid, right? Someone might be competing for them or etc. There's much less of that when it comes to real estate investing.
No, absolutely. And even just to expand a little bit on like real estate investing, because I know at the beginning, you touched on like cost segregation. And so just for the listeners, I'd like to kind of talk about that a little bit, just because, like we do focus on impact and we see the impact that you're creating through social media, but like, I'd love for you to talk about like the impact that cost segregation makes on like active investors, passive investors, like anyone involved in real estate.
Yeah, it's a tax strategy that a lot of real estate investors use in order to just create more cash flow. I mean, that's really, in the end of the day, to sum it up, that's what it is. It's a vehicle to create more cash flow in the earlier years of ownership. And so, my job as kind of an educator in this space, I work for the biggest national cost segregation company. And so, we're doing it all over the country. But in what I do is just kind of educate people about it, because what I've found is that very few people actually know about it and understand it and are taking advantage of it. And when you do end up learning about it, it's basically a no-brainer for most people. So essentially what it's doing is allowing you to, by accelerating your depreciation deductions, in a nutshell, it just means taking more income tax deductions, you pay less income tax. Okay. And that's in a nutshell. I mean, I don't want to get into I'm sure I've talked about this on a couple hundred other podcasts in great detail, but essentially that's what it is. It's powerful not only for the active investors, but also for passive investors, because it creates real estate investing that can essentially be a tax-free or a tax-sheltered investment.
And that's like a big topic, in the news often, like previously to now, and it will be in the future, like income tax. Like I have yet to meet somebody, who says like, I want to pay more income tax. You know what I mean? And like, so it is amazing though, because like people, if you like break it down, like you said, like you have income tax, but with this, you pay less of it. And when you pay less of it, potentially, like depending what your CPA and everybody, like what your situation is, you then have more money to do like the things that you want to do and focus on in life. Right. So like if you're somebody who like wants to pay for your kids' college, like that can help you, because every year income tax is like part of our lives. Right. But like when we look at it over 30 years, some people would probably be like, wow, I could have paid for way more educations than I thought. And like that part in itself, like yes, it's year by year, but when you look at it long term too, like people save a lot of money, you know, like if you want to be more generous within your community, like that extra little bit you can take and put it towards that. Like you can get really creative. It's not just like, oh, I pay less income tax now. It's like, no, what can I do now that I pay less income tax? Like what impact can I make with that? Because if I didn't know about it before and I was paying it in, like what can I do with it now that I know about it? Like it's that huge shift.
And I think the most impactful part of that shift you're talking about is that what can you do with it? I mean, most smart investors will reinvest that money. And so if you think about the compound interest of, you know, using your own money to reinvest that as opposed to paying it to the government, if you have the option to take your money, take that cash flow, reinvest it, how much more wealth you're building at a much accelerated pace. I mean, that to me is the biggest wealth building attribute of real estate investing, is that you can do it because at a much accelerated pace, because you have these tax incentives that allow you to just reinvest your money.
Absolutely. No, I mean, like even for us, right? Like you can do it from anywhere in the world, you know?
Right.
So like it's not people who are just benefiting, like have to be like on US soil, you know? Like, I mean, that's the huge part about Michael and I, you know, like we live in the UK, we invest in the US real estate, but like we can continue this pattern like from wherever. So it's great that you can like that you explain that how you can reinvest it and then continue to do that. So thank you so much for that explanation.
Yeah, so unfortunately, it's getting towards the end of the show. Yonah, it was a great conversation. I wish we can continue this, and we'll have to have you back on for sure in the future. But this brings us to the segment called the Adventurous Four. These are 4 exploratory questions we ask every guest. So I'll begin with question number 1. Where is one place you wish to travel and why?
So this is a great question. So right now, I currently, you know, I grew up and I lived in the United States for, you know, majority of my life, but I moved and I live currently in Israel. So I've traveled quite a bit. And the fact that what a lot of people, their dream is to go to a place that they, you know, visit around the world that they love and then just move there and being able to work remotely from that location, I think is incredible. So for me, it's a difficult question because I'm already like, I've traveled a lot and I don't really enjoy it, to be honest with you. I don't enjoy travel as much as many other people do, but I will take this question and I'll answer it because if there was one place, that I would like to visit, it's kind of less adventurous, but for me, historically and educationally, I would actually like to visit, if I had the chance to visit, you know, Poland, where the concentration camps were. Because for me, as a Jewish person, it's kind of a part of my heritage. I had a lot of extended family that was, you know, murdered by the Nazis, and it's really just a part of our, you know, real living that history. Very dear to, you know, to me, and I think to a lot of other people, and just to keep that alive in our memory banks. Less adventurous than maybe you were looking for, but to me, it's something that is, you know, quite powerful.
No, that is powerful. And thank you for sharing that. You know, like for us, like anything can be an adventure. You know, like we say going to the grocery store at this point is an adventure because of lockdown. But no, like the fact that you have like history tied to it is so much more meaningful. So Absolutely. Thank you for that. And then the second question is, what is one thing on your bucket list and how are you leveraging real estate investing to achieve it?
So one thing on my bucket list, you know, like people think of bucket list like an action, like this thing I want to check out, I want to do.
Yeah.
So for me, like I really would like to, you know, own a real estate, an apartment building, right? Free and clear that can just bring in cash flow, that can, you know, that's what I would like to do. So that's kind of my bucket list.
I love it.
Yeah, I do too. That's actually great, right?
So that will help with the real estate.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You'll use the money that you got from passively investing and to buy it. So it totally makes sense.
Yeah, that's cool. So the third question is, what is one piece of advice for someone who wants to start passively investing in real estate?
Just do it. Do it sooner than later, because the longer you wait, the more opportunities you're going to miss. And like I said, you know, going back to what we were talking about before, the returns that you're getting to be able to reinvest that will help you get to wherever your goals are, financial goals, get you quicker the sooner that you get involved. So don't think you have to have, you know, $100,000 to invest, or 50,000 or even 25. There are, types of investments that you can do even on a smaller rate. So look into them, find out what's, feasible and what works for you. But yeah, just do it.
I was just gonna say, I think there's another quote as well here, and it goes well with that. Is Robert Kiyosaki said, I think, the best time to invest in real estate is 20 years ago. Next best time is right now.
And then the final question is, if you had unlimited resources available to you, how would you leave an impact?
It's a great question. I really, it's kind of hard to think that, I definitely have things that I do on a current basis that leave an impact, but I think one thing that I would continue to, or maybe build if I did have, would just help with housing for people. But more than that, create financial awareness for people. So like, for example, my kids, and I have, my oldest is 16. So I know a little bit about, raising kids, 6 kids altogether, and just giving them the financial literacy from the beginning to be able to, kind of control their finances, see where the future is going to go. And I think there's a lot of communities in the world, even which is just focused on the United States, that don't have that. And unfortunately, the poverty level is so low that they may never get that. So to kind of teach them by giving them, not just educational programs, but actually giving them the resources to invest at a young age, even if it's a very little amount, just so they can experience what that is, to kind of save and to invest and see the benefits of that. So it's creating some sort of program for that. That's what I would do.
I love that.
Yeah, I do
That's great.
too.
Yeah. So before we wrap up, would you mind sharing with our listeners what's the best way they can get a hold of you?
Best way to find me is on LinkedIn.
Who would have thought?
Imagine that.
I had to say it, but you can reach out to me there. Make sure to mention that you listened to this podcast so that I'll know where you found me. Or you can go to my website, yonahweiss.com.
No, awesome. Thank you so much. And we'll definitely put those on the show notes. So again, Yonah, thank you so much for being here, sharing all your knowledge. Again, like I said, I continue to be very grateful for your generosity, just because I have learned and met so many people through you. And it's crazy because I've never actually met you in person, to be able to have an impact on someone from so far away, is phenomenal in itself. So thank you again so much for being here and sharing everything with us.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, this is just the beginning, right?
Yes.
Right.
The adventure has just begun.
That's right. So until next time, explore more, adventure awaits.